Well, time now for a check of the top business news, and I'm joined by Delano D'Souza. Hi there, Delano. Let us begin with some rather promising economic data from China.
Indeed, it was a rosy picture this Monday, Tom. Third quarter GDP came in at 4.9%. The country is the only major economy that's expected to experience positive growth this year. According to analysts, the recovery is broadening and is less reliant on government stimulus. Europe's major economies, meanwhile, are bracing for what will likely be a double-digit recession. This as restrictions to control the second wave of the coronavirus pandemic are implemented. Next, the coronavirus pandemic is pushing all economies in the Middle East towards an economic recession. According to the International Monetary Fund, lower oil prices should increase reforms in the region. Lebanon is expected to see its growth slashed by 25% this year. The IMF, meanwhile, predicts the average price of oil will hover at around $46 a barrel in 2021, well below average prices seen last year.
Look at what is happening today as a call for action and also as an opportunity to accelerate the transformation of the economy, create more opportunities, especially for the youth. We expect that both growth and unemployment to be affected this year. And overall, this crisis could bring growth down by 5%.
Check on how the markets traded this Monday. Here in Europe, Brexit concerns weighed on sentiment. The FTSE in London ended the session down over 0.5%. Similar picture on the DAX in Frankfurt. While here in Paris, the CAC 40 ended the session down 0.2%. Over in the United States, there is hope a fresh stimulus deal can be reached. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin and Nancy Pelosi are set to discuss the bill any moment now. The main indices, meanwhile, in the United States at this hour trading in negative territory. The Dow Jones down around 0.7%. Similar picture on the Nasdaq at this hour. Now, the incoming chief executive of British Airways has appealed to the British and American governments to back a pre-flight COVID-19 testing program, this in a bid to restart transatlantic flights. The plan would require governments to waive quarantines for tested passengers. The industry has suffered massive losses since the start of the pandemic earlier this year. Valerie De Camp reports.
As the aviation industry continues to fight for its survival, airlines have been keen to show that it is safe to fly again. Now, British Airways has become the latest carrier to make the case for looser restrictions, its new CEO urging the UK government to scrap quarantine requirements.
Our position at British Airways is that we do not believe quarantine is the solution. We believe the best way to reassure people is to introduce a reliable and affordable test before flying.
During an online conference just 2 weeks after being named as the new CEO, Doyle argued a testing pilot would help restart travel between London and New York, one of the busiest routes in the world. BA had previously announced it does not expect demand to recover its pre-crisis levels until 2023. The company could cut as many as 10,000 jobs. Some 7,000 people have already been laid off. Meanwhile, British Transport Minister Grant Shapps told the same conference he would push for an agreement on new travel corridors with the United States.
We're trying to get this moving as quickly as possible. By its very nature of international cooperation, I'm afraid I can't predict quite how fast the rest of the world will move to make that a reality.
The UK government is also considering shortening the quarantine period from 14 to 7 days. But BA's new boss was quick to dismiss that option, warning that the country would be left behind unless travel restrictions are eased.
Abu Dhabi-based Etihad has become the first commercial carrier from the UAE to land in Israel earlier today. It comes after the normalization of ties was announced back in August. Etihad says it's planning regular services between the two countries and will shortly be launching a Hebrew language website. ConocoPhillips has agreed to pick up Concho Resources for $9.7 billion. The deal to buy the American shale oil producer increases consolidation in the energy sector amid slowing demand and lower oil prices. The combined entity is expected to hold the equivalent of 23 billion barrels of oil. And finally for me, China's e-commerce giant Alibaba has picked up a $3.6 billion stake in Sun Art. The company runs hundreds of hypermarkets here in France for French shopping giant Auchan. The deal increases its stake in Sun Art to 72% and further tightens Alibaba's grip on e-commerce in China, giving it over 13 million square meters of retail space. That wraps up the business news. I'll hand it back to you.
Thank you. That's a lot of retail space. Delano D'Souza there with the business news. Thank you so much.